So yesterday we talked about creation and how God created this beautiful, vast universe and this earth and all of it for man's pleasure. And that he gave us purpose in this creation to work and to really have fulfillment. He also created all of that in order that we be a reflection of him and so that he could have a relationship with us. Today we're going to talk about the fall, about how in many ways man has really created this rift, this broken relationship with God. So as the story is in Genesis chapter 2, the man and the woman were given this wonderful garden, and then a serpent comes along and tempts Eve into eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It was the one tree God had said, you may not eat. Of all the other trees in the garden, of all the other fruit, they were allowed to have as much as they wanted, but not of this one. And then after that happened, something terrible entered into the world. And I just want to read this from Genesis chapter 3, verse 8. And it says that, and they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. Sin, along with the fall, came fear. Prior to this moment, Adam and Eve had never known fear. They had certainly never been afraid of God, and they had never been ashamed. They've never felt shame. You see, guilt is the feeling that I've done something bad. But shame is something completely different. Shame is feeling that I am something bad. And if you are something bad, it means that you can't really change it. And that's what they felt. They felt a deep sense that they were something bad, not just that they had done something. But hear the voice of God just after that in verse 9. It says, but the Lord God called to the man and said to him, where are you? Now, I remember when I was really young and I'd heard this story told to me, and I always heard that the words of God, where are you, as an angry voice, as a God who was really upset with Adam and Eve. Where are you? It was a scolding. But as I grew older, and especially after I had kids of my own, I began to hear that verse and that voice differently. I remember when my little girl, my middle daughter, was about 2-3 years old. She loved, when we were walking through a mall or a store, she would love to hide in amongst the clothing racks and play hide and go seek with us. And often she would run off and then we would lose track of her, and she would stay hidden. She loved to hide on us. And we would be calling out to, well, where are you? Victoria, where are you? And she would just stay silent somewhere in a clothing rack. Well, panic would begin to set into our hearts, and as we searched everywhere for her and couldn't find her, where are you? And that's the voice I now hear in this verse when God calls to Adam and Eve. Where are you? It's the voice of a dad who's lost his children and wants to find them back. So God had to enact a plan to reconciliate man back to himself, a plan that would mean that there would be a redemption story that would buy man back to himself, and that would free us of our guilt. And tomorrow, we'll talk about that plan.